Great. Okay, our second speaker today is Ashley McKellar. I'll read a few words of introduction for Ashley. Ashley McKellar is a mom and advocate living in Ottawa with her husband Ryan, son Isaac, and their dog Lukey. She is looking forward to speaking today about her journey as a first-time mom to Isaac, who has hydrocephalus. Her story about becoming a mom starts in 2019, but at the time of her delivery in April 2020, the world was facing so many unknowns with COVID-19, lockdowns, and a new unexpected diagnosis of congenital hydrocephalus. Ashley will be sharing her story today in hopes that as a new parent going through the diagnosis, others won't feel so alone, and to encourage everyone to never stop advocating for your child and yourself. The formal title of Ashley's presentation is Lived Experience, Parenting a Child with Hydrocephalus. So I'd like to turn things over to Ashley McKellar.
Thank you so much, Paul. I'll just share my screen. All right, so can everybody see that okay? Shauna, it looks good?
Yes, you're good to go.
Okay, perfect. Hi, everyone. Thanks for the board and to the speakers who have spoken before me and shared their stories and research. My name is Ashley McKellar, and I'm honored to speak at Hydrocephalus Canada's annual general meeting as a mom and advocate. A little bit about me. I married one of my high school best friends. We went through high school as friends and started dating when we were around 21. We later moved to Ottawa, got married, adopted our dog Lukey, and decided to expand our family. In 2019, we got pregnant, and my pregnancy was uneventful, but the world events were anything but. We heard about a pandemic, COVID-19, that was coming, and information was emerging every day. I had a 36-week ultrasound booked, and I remember my OB saying I did not need to go if I didn't want to because of COVID. It was April 7th, and I thought, I just want to see my little boy one more time before he decides to make his entrance. When I got to my appointment, my husband had to wait in the car because they were already starting to restrict the number of people allowed in the room. It was me and the ultrasound technician, and she started asking me questions about when was my last scan and did they mention anything to me. She said she would need to get the doctor to talk to me and left for about 10 minutes and returned to say the doctor would not be able to come see me at this time, but to expect a call later. I got in the car with Ryan and said something is wrong. He tried to reassure me, but I could not wait. I called my OB and asked if she had got any results. She called me back a short time later to say she was able to get me in to see a specialist for an ultrasound the next day. She said it looked like my baby had fluid in his brain. She did not have any more answers, but helped me prepare some questions I could ask the following day. I remember sitting numb after the appointment, crying and calling our close family and friends and my work to say I would not be able to make it in the next day. Something was wrong with our baby, but we did not know the extent yet. The following day, Ryan and I prepared to go to the hospital for my scan. Despite facing some of the scariest news, I had to go alone. My parents and my in-laws, who are incredibly supportive, surprised us and made the 3.5-hour drive up to sit in the hospital parking lot, each of us in our own cars. We could not hug, we could only talk from a distance as they sat in their cars to support Ryan and I with whatever news we were about to receive. I bravely went through the appointment where the doctor said our son had profound hydrocephalus caused by a brain bleed in utero. He had to come out now via C-section because they did not think he was doing well in utero. They told me they were not sure what his quality of life would be like or if he'd be able to breathe on his own. I sat in the private room and relayed this to Ryan over the phone, who then talked to our parents in their cars. I was prepped for a C-section, and surprisingly, I was very focused. I wanted to do everything I could to support getting our son out safely. Just before I was taken into the OR, they finally let Ryan in and let us talk in person. Once he came into the hospital, he was not allowed to leave again. When our son was born, I remember hearing him cry, and I felt such hope that he would be a fighter and we would get through this together as a family. Ryan was able to watch as the children's hospital prepared to transfer our son, and they wheeled him into the head of the OR so I could see him for the first time before he was whisked away. My beautiful, strong boy. After my C-section, it felt empty to be in the maternity ward without a baby. Hearing all the other babies cry in rooms nearby, I had to trust that he was in the best spot for him, and all I could do was focus on getting myself discharged. At 6 a.m., less than 12 hours after he was born, I was sitting up at the side of the hospital bed, ready for the staff to say I could start walking around. I was eagerly waiting to hear news of our son, who we named Isaac. No one was able to tell me any information, and Ryan did not want to leave to go to the children's hospital because he knew he was not allowed back in if he left. I tried to call for information, but they would not give me anything over the phone. I was devastated. Had Isaac died? Is that why they were not telling me an update? I felt stuck. I couldn't get information. My mind was spiraling with the worst case scenarios, and by noon I was beside myself. An angel of a nurse overheard my situation, and on her lunch break, she got a wheelchair and she told Ryan the route we would have to take to go to the children's hospital outside as it began to lightly snow on a bumpy sidewalk. But nothing was going to stop me. She led us through the safety checks and did not take no for an answer. She said we were allowed to leave and they had to let us back in. I braced my stomach with each bump, and my heart and my mind were nervous for what we would find out when we got there. When we got to the children's hospital, they did not want to let me in for the safety check because I was a patient at a different hospital. Once again, a wonderful staff member who was pulled to be a porter overheard and fought not only for me to get to the NICU to see my son, but for Ryan to be able to come up for 10 minutes so the three of us could be together as a family for the first time. And that's a picture of us on the screen right now. That was our very first picture together. I will never forget the staff members who fought for us, allowing us to have this small window together amongst all the chaos. Thank you for all of those in my journey who went above and beyond their job. When I finally got to NICU, I felt a sigh of relief that Isaac was alive. I was able to hold him with the help of a nurse among all the wires monitoring him. Peering down at his beautiful face and watching him, already so brave and so strong. With so many unknowns of why this happened to Isaac, the guilt and sadness started creeping in. How, as a mother, did I not know something was wrong when he was growing inside me? Did I do something that caused this? What would be his quality of life? Would he be able to comprehend just how loved he already was? I spent a few hours that first meeting with Isaac, but I did have to go back to my hospital, being pushed outside by Ryan. The path was painful on my body, but my heart was fluttering between the joy of knowing that Isaac was alive, the fear of what we faced as a family, the guilt of not knowing why this happened, the sadness of not being able to be with him at all times, and the frustration of just how hard the pandemic restrictions were making it to do something as simple as see my son. I was able to be discharged the next morning, and I was ecstatic to be able to spend the whole day with Isaac. Ryan sitting in the car in the parking lot. Every time a doctor or nurse would come in with an update, I would call to tell him the news, what tests they were doing next, the potential for brain surgery to happen. All of this was told to me. Then I would call him to give him an update, or the specialist would wait so that I could get Ryan on speakerphone. Not having my partner by my side in these moments was so challenging. I craved the simplicity of being able to turn to him to talk or verify that we heard the same thing after each visit. Something as simple as a hand to hold as we went through these moments. Instead, it became the sole responsibility of whoever was in the room at the time to ensure they took notes and asked questions we had come up with together. And we had a lot of questions. For 4 days, no one could answer our questions definitively. Isaac endured many tests to try to determine if it was safe for him to have surgery for his hydrocephalus and to figure out why he had the brain bleed in the first place. The areas affected by the bleed included his vision and mobility. I sat with so many overwhelming emotions of the unknowns of what our future would look like. Would we have to modify our house to accommodate mobility devices? How could we afford the services he may require? How could we ensure that he has everything he needs to have a good quality of life and feel loved? Ryan and I would alternate for 12 hours a day between sitting in the NICU with Isaac and waiting in the car in the parking lot because I could not drive myself yet. We were not allowed to be in at the same time and could only come in once a day. The evenings felt empty back home together without Isaac, wondering if he was getting held and comforted when he cried in NICU without us there. I missed him. I set my alarm to pump every few hours and would try hard to only call the nurse 1 to 2 times overnight for an update before I could get there in the morning. We had friends and family drop off groceries, homemade meals, self-care items on our porch as we talked briefly from a distance. I don't know if I've ever cried as much in those 4 evenings without Isaac with us and not knowing what happened or how we could help him. Finally, we got news that despite all the tests, there was no clear cause of the brain bleed that caused Isaac's hydrocephalus. So the plan was to put in a VP shunt. I felt like a weight was lifted off me, knowing that we had a plan in place. I switched my feelings of guilt for now to how I could support Isaac to give him the best quality of life and make sure he knew just how loved he is. At this point, my determination came shining through, and sometimes looking back, I'm not sure how I did it. The strength and love a mother feels towards their child can make us be able to do things we never thought possible. I was present for morning rounds each morning in NICU. I knew to be the best mom to Isaac, I needed support to process my own thoughts and emotions. I advocated for a social worker to come talk with me and to learn about what resources could help me, but also help Isaac in the future. It was such a challenging time in healthcare with COVID-19. It's sad to say I had to push and ask for many days until finally a social worker was able to call me. They had shifted a lot of services out of the hospital, and the process on how to access them was not clear. So despite me asking for a service that is usually accessible to parents in NICU, I had to actively pursue my request until someone was able to make it happen. That was just the first of many roadblocks in our access to services for Isaac, and I realized as his mom, I was his advocate. 2 days after Isaac's surgery, we were moved to a medical ward, and one good thing about the change was I was able to stay overnight now with Isaac. Every day I would pack my clothes, some toiletries, some food to last 12 to 30 hours. Ryan was back at work because we both chose to have him take off time once Isaac was discharged from the hospital, since only one parent was allowed at a time with Isaac. Normally after work, Ryan would come and relieve me at the bedside while I went home to shower, pack some more food, get some fresh clothes. I wanted to be at Isaac's bedside all the time. Despite going through a major surgery, I was already off pain medication so I could drive myself, lugging all my bags and food to Isaac's bedside and walking through the long halls and parking lots of the hospital, and sleeping in a pull-out chair most nights. Like I said, in hindsight, I don't know how I found the strength to do this or how my body was able to heal with all I was pushing it to do. At his bedside, I was already becoming his advocate. He had many tests, including being seen by ophthalmology, MRIs, ultrasounds, blood work, and his incision on his head had opened up twice because his skin was so delicate from being premature. I was by his side for each one for as long as they would let me because I wanted him to know that I was there. He was not going through this alone. I insisted before we were discharged that we had all the services in place we may need because I could see how COVID was rapidly changing the way we lived in our healthcare system. I was determined to get what we needed prior to being discharged. I worried that if I already had to fight so hard as an inpatient, I may get completely lost as an outpatient while hospitals and services switched the way they delivered care. Having these services in place gave me something to focus on over the next 17 months that I was off with Isaac for mat leave. Because of the ever-changing rules of COVID, we spent a lot of mat leave together as a family of 3 in Lukey, or outside visiting family and friends when it is safe to do so. It helped me feel empowered by having the medical specialties tell me what I could focus on with Isaac, and that I could talk about my concerns and they could give me reassurance or answers. I saw each appointment as a place I could gain knowledge for myself and Isaac, not as a failure on myself as a mom, as Isaac and I worked towards his milestones. I gained reassurance and support that he was working hard and would come to things at his own pace. Whatever our future may look like, we would get through it together. Today, 3 years later, I'm honored to be here virtually sharing my story. The love and joy Isaac has given those in our lives is incredible. He's a strong boy who at age 3 can already say hydrocephalus and knows all about his shunt. He does not let any roadblocks or challenges slow him down. He will get there in his own way and time, and it is beautiful to watch him grow into the kind, silly, talkative, smiley boy he is today. A few things I've learned so far in my journey as a mom to a child with hydrocephalus is, wow, our kids are strong. Despite the tests, procedures, challenges they may face, they are incredible. Many times it is Isaac who has taught me that it'll be okay. I want to be his advocate and empower him to have the tools to live a great life. When we have tough moments, the early days of a new diagnosis, the need for surgery, the fear of a shunt failure, lean into your support system. Our friends and family have been priceless. They have listened without judgment as I've worked through a range of emotions. They have had our backs when we need help, and they lift us up in hard moments. Lean into your supports. You are not alone. For me, I want to thank Hydrocephalus Canada for all they have done to support my family. The resources you've shared, the community I've found on our support group chats, the knowledge Shauna and Andrea have passed down has been invaluable. I hope by sharing my story so far of what I have learned as a mom with a child who has hydrocephalus, I can help at least one person normalize that it's okay to feel a range of emotions. It's okay to push and advocate for the services you and your family need. And know that you are not alone in your journey, and Hydrocephalus Canada is here to support you. So thank you again for all of those who support Hydrocephalus Canada and for those who work for Hydrocephalus Canada.
Great. Well, thanks a lot there, Ashley, for a very heartfelt story. And I know my son we went through a similar experience to yours, so your remarks resonated with me very much. Um, do we
Thanks,
have any
Paul.
questions, Shauna?
I don't see any in the Q&A, so if anybody has questions for Ashley, please put them there.
How's Isaac doing? Is he doing pretty well?
Yes, he's wonderful. He loves to tell long stories. He's full of energy, and we still have appointments with our specialties and everything. But yeah, he's a lovely boy. He's doing very well.
I know he's in preschool. How is he enjoying that?
He loves it. He talks about all of his friends there and everything he's learned. He likes to think that he can teach us a lot of things. So it's really special to hear what he comes home with to teach us.
As I said, our son has the same condition, and he seems to get affected by changes in barometric pressure, like headaches from that. So hopefully Isaac won't experience the same things, but I guess that's always a possibility with hydrocephalus.
Yeah, exactly. And he's at the age now where he can communicate a bit more about how he's feeling, but he's never complained about headaches or anything so far.